Lightfall represents one of my favorite types of game. I'm not referring to side-scrollers or platformers or anything. What I mean is a small indie title that introduces a single unique idea or gimmick and sets out to explore it. I would put some of my favorite games of the past years into this category. Snake Pass, for example, was about introducing and exploring a unique snake-based control scheme. The Witness was about introducing and exploring line graph puzzles in an open-ended environment. And while I wouldn't rate Lightfall as highly as Snake Pass or The Witness, it still falls into that same indie mold where, in my opinion, gaming is still at its freshest and most innovative. The core concept of Lightfall is that the main character has the ability to create his own platforms. You start out being able to summon them below your feet by hitting the jump button in mid-air. The platforms you create are square blocks with lights in them that indicate how many more platforms you can spawn within a single jump, the total being 4. The moment the player lands on any kind of solid ground that isn't their own, that counter is reset. There are some more uses that I'll get to a bit later, but this is the base idea. By the way, if there's one thing I can commend this game on, it is that not a single time was I able to do the Breath of the Wild thing where I cheat the level geometry by finding little unintentional mountain outcrops that I can stand on to restore my stamina, or in this case, my platform charges. What I found so interesting about Lightfall's creation gimmick is how it changed my whole approach to taking platforming challenges. On a very basic level, it functions just like a double jump. One button press to jump, another one to create a platform to land on, then one more to go into the air again. If you do that fast enough, it really just feels like the conventional double jump found in so many other games, but with 3 extra jumps instead of 1, and each of them requiring 1 extra input. The cubes that you create generally accommodate for your current velocity too, meaning that if you're going in one direction at a high speed, the platform will be created slightly in front of you so that you still safely land on it without killing your momentum. It feels great and was easy to get accustomed to, which is exactly one of the main things I noticed while playing Lightfall. The game feel is excellent and a lot of it can be brought back to its gimmick. What I mean by that is that creating platforms has more utility than just letting you reach farther or higher within a single jump. For one thing, they offer you more freedom. If you know where you need to go next, then how you get there is up to you, with only the 4 platforms per jump limit restricting you. Sometimes you can take a route around or above certain dangers as long as your supply of boxes doesn't run out, and sometimes you can make a jump with only 2 platforms where someone else might need 3 or 4. What I noticed in particular is that any platform you create functions as a safe space too, since they don't have a time limit. You can just summon a cube and stop in the middle of a difficult section to reorient yourself, observe your surroundings, then figure out what to do next or how the obstacle pattern in front of you works. When you need to jump on a moving target, a cube will give you all the time you need to get the right moment, and when you jump too far or miscalculated your arc, they can be used to instantly rectify that mistake, giving you another chance. That is where the main mechanic of Lightfall transcends, just being an innovative movement tool, and starts affecting the difficulty of the game itself. I wouldn't consider this game to be easy. The normal movement speed is pretty damn high, and at times it approaches those rinse and repeat rooms seen in Celeste or Super Meat Boy. But the platform creation gimmick inherently offers a lot more leeway to executing jumps correctly. I was able to pull off some really impressive feats in some of these levels, and often with only a few tries. Never did I get frustrated or feel like I was not in control. It was a nice change of pace, honestly, as the only other platformers I had played in 2018 were Celeste and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, both games that, especially in the later levels, become punishingly difficult. Lightfall goes for a different standard here. It still requires finesse, planning and good reactions, but it uses that ever-present creation mechanic to give the player greater room to survive mistakes. Challenges become more approachable while still being complex and responsive enough to establish a feeling of accomplishment, meaning there's a wonderful balance here between difficulty and accessibility, all thanks to the strength of the game's foundation. With the developers of Lightfall building their game on one unique gimmick, the next step they had to take was explore it properly. They did so in varying ways and with varying levels of success in my opinion, but every single new idea is anchored in the platform creation mechanic. The core idea informs the challenge here, which is preferable to coming up with challenges first and then implementing poorly connected mechanics to make them happen. We already established that multiple platforms can be used to reach higher places. This ability is further altered when the main character learns to create them next to him instead of below his feet. This means the box is summoned at a higher altitude, so climbing up on top nets a bigger height gain. A nice little detail here is that even when spawning platforms that way, Lightfall keeps on course with the accessibility I talked about earlier. Any momentum you have during your jump guarantees that you will be pressed against the cube that you just willed into existence, and your character generally sticks to any wall for a second before he starts sliding down along. That is perfect for giving you a moment to reorient yourself again, even on horizontal collisions. Where the exploration of the cube gimmick gets interesting is when it is used as a physical object against hazards. It can be shot as a projectile against enemies for one thing. Doing so destroys your currently summoned platform, which can lead to some fun moments that require jumping, shooting, and immediately recreating the platform below you. This idea is expanded upon when your cubes are used as a barrier against enemy shots or lasers, which can mean calling them just as you're about to hit a laser beam coming from the ground and consequently blocking it out, for example. That is also asked in multiple stationary sequences where a moving elevator requires you to hold down the Create Platform Next to Me button and carry it in front of you while quickly switching sides to adjust to where the hazards are coming from. An extension of this is the ability to hold down a button to move your boxes around freely, deliberately placing them to block off dangers. This is further used to put them in corresponding openings and turn them like a screwdriver to open up passages or influence other objects in the environment. Honestly though, out of all the ways in which Lightfall explores its core idea, this is probably my least favorite one. Just standing around moving your box instead of your character kills any momentum, which is noticeable given that otherwise this game is extremely fast and responsive. There's one moment however in which rotating an object in the environment with your cube is used in a creative way. A nice little section where your box replaces the rotor of a boat and you propel yourself across the water holding down the button while at the same time avoiding obstacles with your character. What I generally enjoy about these experiments though, even the ones that don't work out, is that they all can be traced back to the one idea that defines Lightfall: being a platformer in which you create your own platforms. Using them as a physical shield, as a projectile, or to interact with the environment, I can see how all of these were born from the original mechanic. Lightfall is a focus game with a single clear design principle behind it. As a result of that focus, none of the deviations from the core concept feel out of place. Rather, they seem like logical and natural extensions born from the developers asking themselves, okay, we have our foundation, now how do we build on it? And that is exactly why I enjoy indie games like Lightfall so much. They don't throw a dozen half-baked ideas at you to see which of them stick, they present you with a single idea that has been properly tested, polished and thought through. I'm sure adding a bunch more systems to the game, like, I don't know, forcing in skill trees or crafting or an open world would completely destroy the budget that these developers had to work with. But that is fine because a game like Lightfall doesn't need those, and neither do Snake Pass or The Witness. They introduce their idea, they explore it, and once they've achieved it, they simply conclude. In the case of Lightfall, as I explained earlier, the way the core mechanic plays out also adds a lot of accessibility without sacrificing skill. With that, it ends up being a nicely condensed and enjoyable ride that I can get through in a reasonable amount of time. And since so many releases are already trying to eat up every single second of my life nowadays, I wouldn't want to have it any other way. Bouken, signing out.